With great love, great respect, I want to welcome everyone. Con amor, con cariño. I want to welcome everyone. Bienvenido. I want today to also remind you that we're going to do the Festival of Lights on Wednesday. Now, Festival de la Luz. So that is where you ask for the money, and all the business, and all the wealth, and all the...
Mucho dinero.
Mucho dinero. Eso es Dios de la luz, Dios de la prosperidad, y Dios de del dinero. And so on Wednesday, that is a special day that we celebrate that is. So at 7 o'clock a las 7, you can come and we will do the festival. And you will celebrate that night. Anything you ask for that night, and we'll have a special mantra that you can ask for anything you want. Deseo Vagani. So now, you're welcome to Heendu Learning Center. And on Heendu Learning Center, we here teach you how to say the mantras. We teach you how to meditate. We teach you how to control the mind, control the body and the mind in harmony. And we also teach you how to say the mantras correctly so that you understand how to bring the energy into your life. So that's why we have these sessions every Sunday. That's why Gaddafi is gone. Right? So that's the change, isn't it? Big change. So we're having many changes. In fact, change was the basis of the Obama election. And it's very strange that change was his following in his subject in the election. Because change is what is happening now. The United States is changing, all the countries are changing all around the world, and the whole world is changing. And 2012, of course, everybody thinks the world is going to end. You know? And people are still asking me, Swami, is the world going to end? But if the world ends, then all these changes are not necessary. Because for us to have change, the world cannot end. The world is going to change. So, in Hindu philosophy, in Vedic science, there is no end of the world. Of course, you know, it's nice to get a little publicity and say that the world is going to end, and everybody starts getting excited. But as the world changes, as the United States change, as everything changes, guess what's happening to you? You are changing. The job, the money you spend, the groceries you buy, the pleasures you take, is all changing. Because the universe is changing. And when the universe changes, everybody gets change in their life. So, as you can see, when your life starts to change, you have to adjust to everything. So change is what we have constantly in our life. If we are not making the changes, then the government is making the changes for us. Or the universe is making the change. So we have to learn how to cope with these changes. We have to understand why the world is constantly changing. But in our life, we are constantly changing too. You know? And the change could be positive or the change could be negative. Right? So the purpose of change is to make things better. Right? Or make things get better. You know? By killing the old things, bringing the new things. Right? So our life is a constant circle of change. Now we go through the 1, Life code 1, life code 2, life code 3, and we get to 9, and come back to 1 again. So we're always constantly going through changes in our life. And these are the changes we need to understand. Because most of the time people are not happy with their life, they want to change. And most people are suddenly happy, and then all of a sudden they lost everything, like Gaddafi or O.J. Simpson or Saddam Hussein. But all of a sudden they're going good, and then they big change, right? One of the things that we have to learn is how to handle these changes so that it becomes very successful for us. One of the things that we have to learn is to make it, that we can create changes in our life that can become very positive and adapt to the changes so that you can know when the changes are coming, you can know how to take advantage of it. And that's what our life code science teaches you here in the Heendu Learning Center. We teach you through the numbers, through Vedic mathematics, how to expect the change in your life so you can change it, so you can make the changes appropriately. And if you understand how to make a change and when to make the change, your life will be very, very prosperous. And so you have to understand, okay, when these changes happen. Now what happens, for example, if when you get married? It's a big change. Do you know that each one of you can change the whole world? That one person changes the whole world? Well, think of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, right? Or Osama bin Laden. Change the whole world. Now everybody have to take off their belt and everything in the airport because one man decides to make the whole change. Think of the change that Einstein made whenever, because of that everybody have television and so on. So one person can change the whole world. And if one person can change the whole world, that means you can change the whole world too. But that's what we do when we do puja. You know, in the ritual, you've heard of puja many times, but puja is really a ritual to change the world around you. Because each person is an ingredient of the whole world. So each person can change the world around them. Right? You feel the world around you. Right? So if you can change that world, for example, let's say if you have a fever, let's say you're sick. Nobody knows how you feel except you. So right now you're in the sick world. At the moment that you're sick, you can't think about shopping, or you can't think about going on a party, because your world is concentrated around that and around you when you're sick. So you have to take yourself out of that world now before you can get back into the party world or the world of shopping or something. So each one of us experience the world by our own, in our own way, in our own self. And so that's why it's so difficult in marriage life. Because the two people see life differently. Right? So when the two people see life differently, the wife says, I don't like movies. And the husband says, but I like movies. Two different worlds. Two different worlds. So the wife says, I don't like to party. Husband says, I want to party. Two different worlds. Right? So each person sees the world differently. So each person has to change to adapt to that other person's world. So if you want to change someone, who should you change first? Yourself. You have to change yourself first. You cannot change anyone else. Right? So the first thing when people get married is they want to change the guy. or the girl. The guy wants to change the girl, right? So that's the first thing they want to do, is to change the other person. And that now starts a war. That starts a personality war, right? And most of the time, when people come see me, and they're having a problem with their marriage or so, I ask her how, well, I check to see first, but I asked her how they were doing before when they married. I'm doing very well. They didn't have no quarrels, didn't have no fights, no nothing. But after they get married, they start fighting, they start quarreling. Why? Because they cannot accept the change, or they won't change. Right? Now, my favorite one is when the girl comes over and tells me that, oh, Swami, since we got married, it's not been the same. Since we got married, it's not been the same. And I said, let's take a look. Well, you used to be very independent, you used to dress very nice, you used to look like a model and everything. What happened now? Right? She said, well, you know, I'm married now. Right? I'm married now, so I don't need to look like a model anymore. I got the guy. Right? So now what has happened? That's a destructive change. That's a destructive change, because she has changed the way she used to be, so the guy doesn't see her the same way he saw her when he fell in love. So, you know, he loses interest, he wants to know, well, what kind of wife he has now. Right? Marriage is an exciting venture. It's an exciting life if the people remain the same way they treated each other in the first minute. We should always, our honeymoon should not be only 3 days or 2 weeks. Honeymoon should be forever. You know, the dating should continue, right? Because that keeps the love going. You know, but then, you know, afterwards the guy says, well, I have to think about bills and so on, and he starts paying attention to the woman and so on. So the only thing that can create good happiness is to create another change in your marriage, create another change in your life. And what that change is. I'm surprised. What will knock out all the negativities in your life if these negative changes come into your life? Prayer. Prayer, and, you know, learning the mantras and learning how to pray and how to give a good temple. Start to learn yourself how you should be to adapt to that change. Right? And that's where we're lacking. Now, again, you're going to say, well, how should I pray for change? First, you have to understand what is prayer. Prayer is discovering your own self. Prayer is learning how to change, adapt to change by discovering your own reaction to that location. And this is where life good comes in. Right? And you all know, most of you know the numbers. Some of you might be new to it. But for example, if you're in a number 9 house, you're going to expect money to be spent more. If you're in a number 6 house, you're going to be quarreling a lot. Right? Or if the marriage is a 6, you're going to be having in-law problems and so on. So these are all the changes that will take place now as you get married and you have a family and so on. When the child is born, it brings changes into your life. Every time the child is born, it brings changes. So if you are not prepared with knowledge to cope with the change, what will the change do to you? It will destroy you. And that's exactly what we need to learn. need to learn about how you can cope with changes.